All right. Watching the Jonathan Rogers interview and watching him not make any sense again. He never makes any sense. He just circle talks because because I'm a salesman by trade, so that's what I do. I circle talk my customers all the time. I honestly feel like, I don't know, it just seems inauthentic. But I don't know, I could just be tripping. I'm sure he's a great guy. And yes, we are doing another build because I'm bored and I don't like any other games right now. I mean, I could play Last Epoch, but it's just not there yet, dude. This game is where it's at, man, I'm telling you. Oh, shit. What am I doing, dude? What am I even doing, dude? It doesn't even matter. What the fuck? I can get all the gems on. Let's see. What level are we? We're 12. Okay. Can we do... We should get some Siege Ballista action going on. Is this going to be more skill points than is necessary, or what? Let's see. Because we're going to need to come down and grab the cluster anyway, but can I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Ooh. But I'm still going to need to come down here, so... Well, let's just do this, because this is going to get us to the... this is going to get us to the Ancestral Bond. Is it attack damage? It attacks damage. It's based off of your bow. is the Ballista nodes? Attacks used by totems of 8% +1 to maximum. Okay. Increased. Sepia, indigo, opalescent. Does it do elemental damage, though, from the beginning? Fires multiple arrows with extreme force, breaking them apart and shot when enemies can get hit by multiple arrows. Okay, we'll use that for now. Maybe we can Mana Forge arrow some, where's Frenzy at? No, Frenzy, I don't get Frenzy till later. Oh shit, I forgot to put the, I wonder if I have any quivers that I can use. But we don't have crafting. But today, Junior. There's no crafting in PoE 2, dude. What the fuck is the difference between picking up currency and picking up 1,000 bases? I don't understand what the difference is. In all honesty, I really don't. They're trying so hard not to put stuff in from PoE 1. It's unbelievable, actually. They're just doing mental gymnastics, dude, to fit these omens into the game. Or not the omens, but the soul cores in the room. Mental motherfucking gymnastics, dude. Whoa, it's the same thing. It's just like the bench. It's not. Stop. Quit it. Who are you trying to tell that to? Quit gaslighting yourself, bro. Hey, what up, man? Oh, cool. Sick. Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Heist is the shit. Glad you like it, man. Yeah, I tried to do my best. It's a lot of information to pack in there, but I hope I didn't gloss over it. I hope it was easy to understand. Right now I'm experimenting. I want to find my league starter, man. I know we don't have patch notes yet, but I want to test some stuff out. Dude, I honestly, the longer I listen to Jonathan Rogers talk about PoE 1, the more I feel like he doesn't play PoE 1 ever. He just said in this interview right now, Hold on, sorry. This dude just said right now that attribute requirements were not a thing in PoE 1. Dude, have you ever played this game? Yeah, it's on what's his name? Talkative Tries channel. I don't know how the hell he said that, dude. But he says stuff like that quite often. If you're paying attention to what he's saying, it almost feels like he doesn't play PoE 1 or hasn't. Or maybe he's played it like a couple times, but maybe never to end game or something. Dude, attribute requirements are super, super important in this game. Like, I can't count how many times I've bricked a piece of gear because I had to, like, respec something and then, oh, shit, I'm missing, like, 20 intelligence. And you know? Dude, the fact that that wasn't pushed back on is absurd. He's just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Dude, what? That doesn't make any sense, dude. See, that's the problem, man. They need to. I know they would never do it, but I wish that they would give. I wish they would give someone like me a shot to interview him, because I pull no punches, dude. Like, I don't give them any slack because the way I run my business, right? Like, if I'm providing a customer a product, like, and the customer's unhappy with it, they have every right to complain. You know what I mean? And it's on me, 100%. So the fact that there are so many people that are unhappy, I would definitely try to be more of a voice for the community. No, so Talkative Tries really, he's actually like a really good content creator, dude. He's just he comes off as disingenuous sometimes because he tries to act like he doesn't understand why people are upset. And he doesn't do it all the time, but he does it sometimes. And also he lets people's comments get to him too much. I'm on the opposite side of it, dude. I don't give a shit. I make content to try to be helpful, dude. The people that are going to get something out of it are going to get something out of it, dude. But people like PoE is very hard to make content for because there's so many people that are hyper critical of the content that's made for this game. So you got to come correct, you know, and make something that's actually useful. He got real lucky because he hyped his whole channel was built around PoE 2, you know. Yeah, see, he wants to appease the developers too much. That's his like his one flaw as a content creator, I feel. Like, I really feel like Jonathan could get away with some egregious decisions and he would still agree with them just because he's Jonathan, which is not really right. If you're going to represent the community and like be doing these interviews and stuff, you got to push a little bit on these people. Like, why did you make that decision, dude? Why did you guys decide hard stop, like no crafting bench? And what's the difference? If you're saying that the runes are just like the crafting bench, then why not just put the crafting bench in? Like, the logic just doesn't make any sense. I would ask questions like that. Damn, dude, there's a bunch of lost dogs, dude, on my my Ring app. Damn. Yeah, the Zizarin interview is really good, dude. It got heated for a second too, which was really cool. I like that. I thought it was really good of him to push back like he did, man. I still can't get over that he just said that. If attribute requirements weren't a thing in PoE 1, why the fuck would you need something like an elegant hubris that ignores all attribute requirements? Like what? Goddamn, dude, Jonathan with his fucking circle logic. He's so funny, dude. It's like, man, my car, you'd be like, dude, my car just broke down. And he'd be like, well, did your car break down? Or did the, or is it maybe just how the engine's running? It's just like, dude, he's always just like trying to, I don't know, that's not a good way to put it, but like when he's talking about like, oh, well, like the way that items are dropping or the way that the campaign's slow, he'll be like, well, it's just because it just depends on what you mean by play. It just must not be engaging enough. It's like, no, dude, it's just boring and slow. I don't know, dude, I'm trying to think of like a good way to like make fun of that. Like, it's just so funny how he does that with all these questions. You imagine being in the office with him and you'd be like, hey, good morning, Jonathan. And he'd be like, well, what do you mean by good? And it really just depends on what you mean by morning too, because morning can be different things for different people. Like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Yeah, 100%. I was actually really surprised because at the beginning of this interview, he was like, yeah, we kind of fucked up on the scheduling of things, but his explanation didn't make any sense either. He was like, he said if you set dates, I'm trying to remember how he put it. He said if you set dates and you can't set date and content like at the same, like the amount of content that's coming out at the same time. You have to set one or the other. Because if you set the amount of content that's coming out, you can't set the date, is what he said. It just made zero sense what he said. I was like, dude, I don't know. And everybody just nods. Oh, yeah. Yeah, John, yeah. That makes total sense, dude. That's why I would never be able to interview him. Because I'd back him up into a corner, dude. I'd be like, whoa. Say it slower. And really think about what you're saying. Because he just talks like super fast. And he like stutters a lot, you know? So it's like, it's really kind of hard to follow him, dude. And he's really good. In fact, I wish I could hire this guy to be on the phone for me. Because he would be very, very good. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, horror game? He would be very, very good on the phone. Appreciate the follow, dude. Hold on, I gotta ban this bot, dude. Dude, this Twitch, I don't even want to. I don't even want to stream on Twitch anymore, dude. It's like not only is like my. Like, I don't have that many followers. I have like way more subscribers on YouTube than I do on Twitch. But Twitch like ad revenue is just tanking right now, and it doesn't even really feel like it would be worth the investment of like building up the channel. It does. I think you get way more from your subs than you do from any ads. So I don't know, but there's a lot of bots, dude. So many bots. I never get bots in my YouTube chat. Yeah, you could definitely tell, dude, that Jonathan doesn't have the he doesn't have the chops for game director. I don't think. Because like, think about it, dude. If you're creating a product that you're selling to people, you shouldn't be in the position where you have to defend why it's so bad. You know, like if I like for instance, or if I were sold like ink cartridge to somebody. Because that's what I do for a living. I sell like printer ink and stuff. If I were to sell ink to 50 customers, right, and 25 of them were like, "Dude, this ink sucks. It doesn't work. I don't enjoy using it." Da 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 da. I should probably take a look at the product that I'm providing. Instead of being like, no, dude, it really just depends on how you're printing. And like, what are your DPI settings? And like, what's your page coverage set at? And it's like, you know, you can get into all these like rebuttals to try to make the person feel stupid. And that's not a good, it's not a good look, especially when you're providing a product. Yeah, right. Yeah, I would just change like my vendor. But like the thing that, but that's the weird thing about this is like, right, some QA, dude. And I think that is really what's lacking. I think that, and to be honest with you, this is kind of me giving them a little bit of an out, but at the same time, they were very, very fucked up with developing both games, right? Obviously, because they pissed off like half their community by delaying PoE 1. So I think what happened is I don't think they have enough people to be developing and testing. I really don't. Oh, you know what I can do, dude? Well, let me see if this works real quick. Let me try to add another, let's see, application. Let's see if this works. Let me see if this works real quick. You can be my test subject and tell me if this works. Because that way I don't have to have it on my TV and kind of in the background. I can let you listen to it too. Let's see. Okay, here, let's see if this works right now. You can be my test pilot. Let's see. That's not accurate. That can't be correct. Hold on. Why isn't it popping up? Oh, I know why. Okay, hold on. There we go. Oh, no, wait. Hold on. What the fuck, dude? I'm trying to, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, put application audio into OBS so you can listen to the podcast as well. But it's not working. Let's see. Let's see if this works real quick.
And okay. So, the buffs sound great with nerfs.
Can you hear
Let's
that?
take, pull it out of a hat. Lightning Spear. Oh my god. Okay, so say Lightning
Right.
Spear. I think a lot of people very quickly came to the either realization or the opinion that Lightning Spear was like the only viable
Sorry
skill
if that-
in
if that was
endgame.
loud
They
in the
moved on
mic.
very quickly. They started playing other games and just left. People who
Yeah.
stayed discovered, okay, actually, Lightning Spear isn't the only viable thing. There's all this other stuff you can try out. But
right.
because it ran rampant through the community, like a lot of people
Yeah.
just decided, okay, I play Lightning Spear, and there's no reason to even try anything else, and then they quit.
Yep, you're
Do
right.
you
It
think-
was really bad.
So I'm curious, do you think that outweighs the negatives of perhaps doing a mid-league nerf onto that while providing like a respec, saying, hey, Lightning
I
Spear.
understand. Look,
Yeah,
Is
I'm
it, it's
curious.
not too loud
I'm
then?
with you in theory completely, right? I do understand that, but in practice, we would not be getting any friends. Right, like the people who you say leave because they're done because they did Lightning Spear and then they were done. Those same people would have been done instantly if we had nerfed it. Like I really don't think that they would have moved on, and it's just one of those things that like it's just the reality of this is just so harsh in terms of like how that works.
So for example, like I think like was it the cast on crit change in 01? Was that like
Right.
evident in the like player graphs
Okay,
essentially?
cool.
Like when you saw that happen,
Well, I mean, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not even just graphs, just reactions and everything, right? Like, it is, yeah, that kind of stuff. It's really harsh. And look, nerfs are always going to be unpopular, but as I said, the mid-league nerf it is unfair to someone who is making the character. It really is, and it's like I really do believe that no matter how much respecing and stuff that you allow, it still is the case that people just feel really bad about it. So yeah, it really sucks that kind of thing kind of like screwed with the meta a lot. But even though that happened, I would say that it's not like there weren't still problems. Like, there are more viable things than maybe players say, but then at the same time, there aren't enough viable things for what we
Right.
want to deliver, right? So, like that's something that we just need to focus on anyway.
well, bringing up the floor is going to be a great solution, and I'm pretty excited to see those after the 3.26 expansion comes out. Awesome. All right. So I want to stay on the topic of balance for a little bit, but we're gonna tighten it a little bit, the focus. So I want to talk about skill scaling in particular. So for example, like storm mages as a skill, they're lightning based, but lightning elemental damage doesn't scale them, nor will projectile damage or anything related to like that archetype. It's just minion damage. Are you guys open to like adding more tags to some of these gems to allow for a little bit more diversity in how you scale some of these more niche skills? Or is there a reason that you guys are like limited a little bit?
I actually am open to that particular case. Like that particular case is one that I was actually heading for, but there's like various pressures for various reasons in the studio about like how things should work, like making things consistent and stuff like that. And there's also just like complexity of implementation and so on. Like there's a lot of like all of that those changes, because we have so many stats, they just end up taking a huge amount of time. And one of the things that's interesting is like every stat that existed in PoE 1 is still in the PoE 2 code base. And in theory, a designer they don't want those stats to be broken.
Oh shit, there's an ad. Son of a bitch, getting free ad space on my channel. Did you see that? That's crazy. How are they gonna do me like that? Yeah, dude,
Because like they might want to use them, right? And so what that means is that every single stat sort of like changed in the way that thing works. It's like not only are we supporting all the
There's
stats
no
that currently
easy
exist
way
in
to do
PoE
it,
2,
to be honest
but every
with you,
single
dude. You're
stat that
gonna
ever worked
piss
in PoE
people
1 is
off if
also
you do
getting
it one way or
maintained in
the
this
other.
code base because they're all still there. And so that means it's like the ability to change like one of these things, it actually takes longer than you might expect. But what it does mean is that we've got like a huge pile of stuff that like when we need something, it's like half the time it already exists, right? It's just right there. We just use it. But yeah, it just means that like there's a lot of stuff to do something like that. So we discussed this change about having like basically I mean, look, I remember it even came up because when we're like, okay, like when you're using SRS, a lot of people would consider that that feels like a spell, right? You know, like, so therefore, you know, like in PoE, the way that you understand as a PoE player is, yeah, well, that's a minion, so of course it scales this way and all that, and that's fine, right? But like, if you're just a new player just turning up for the first time and you see that, you're probably expecting that your spell damage is going to increase the damage that that thing does.
Right.
So, you know, like, it's stuff like that that kind of means that, like, you know, in some ways I would like to make these sorts of changes, but it is a bit of a fight sometimes about, like, you know, how that should work. And once again, as I said, it doesn't help that on the other side of that, there's the people saying, well, yeah, but changing this is going to take frickin' ages because we've got to change all these stats, right? So they've always got that on their side kind of as an extra part of the argument there. There's always things. So, but the thing is, like, so what you're saying there about changing that is one way we could potentially make some skills scale better. Like, it's an option that we have and one that I'm willing to explore. But like, as I said, I think that it isn't necessarily that one thing. It's sort of many different elements that we can do. Like, it can be changing functionality. It can just be like, you know, yeah, like just adding the ability for, well, yeah, just other elements of skill that can make us allow it to scale with stats that we already have,
Right.
without necessarily changing how they work. But I mean, as I said, both ways can work, and I am totally open to it for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Good to hear. And here's another one that I'm really curious about, because personally, going into PoE 2, I thought I was going to use weapon swap so much, dude, and I ended up not using it. And I think one of the reasons why is because there's that like that weapon swap
Feels clunky
speed
as fuck,
penalty that
dude.
still exists in the game, and you guys are encouraging combo-based builds, but at the same time, it's a little discouraged. So I'm really curious, one, about your thoughts on either
Talk about the
altering this
combos
or
and
removing it
the fact that you're
entirely, 'cause I
getting
do know
rushed
that
by
there's, like,
monsters by
three
1,000
passives
monsters and you
on the
don't have
south
time
side
to
of the tree
combo.
that lowers the amount
That's
of
a
time, but
really
it.
good
There's no other way to
Well,
kind of smooth that out.
like logical argument
what
to
I
make
wanted
to
to
him.
do,
And
was
he
to make it scale with
sidesteps
attack
it every
speed.
time it's brought up.
But as soon as we said that, we're like, okay. So, like, the theory was, well, it sounds so easy, right? You're like, okay, right. So whatever weapon you're switching to, you look at the attack speed of that, because you want the local attack speed modifiers to work, right? Like, that's the first thing, is you can't just use global attack speed; it won't scale enough. It has to work with the weapon that you're actually swapping to. And so then you're like, okay, so sure, you look at the local attack speed mods of that weapon, and that should be able to make it work. But then it's like, okay, so what happens then when the thing you're swapping to is a staff?
Right.
It doesn't have attack speed mods. It's like a different thing. It's like, okay, shit, what do we do now? There's like questions there. So effectively, like, there was all these kind of questions around this that kind of came up, and then we ended up not doing it. But it's still something to do, because I agree that there's a problem. We have to make it so that I don't think we can remove it. And the reason why is because immediately would mean that something like anything that gives you sort of like ability options that other weapons have would probably become a little bit too easy. If it was just like literally zero swap time, like you would just be raking all day, so that's kind of thing. So everything else that would become, you know, and look, you could argue there's a problem with rake and whatever.
Everybody
that's a
already
separate question.
raking.
Yeah, sure. But effectively, look, I agree with you that by the time you get to endgame speeds, you do need like something about that to change. And the way I think is to care about like attack speed and like something, we just need to work out exactly how that can work. And I do think that it is something that I want to try and address in 0.3 if we can. I just need to sort of see like exactly how it can work. But yeah, I agree. There's a problem, and we need to fix it.
Yeah.
I will mention that like Mark's playing a build where he's using weapon swap, like, you know, like that's you know, so he's kind of like, you know, it does work. Like he says, like it could be better, but it's not like unviable from his perspective. But look, I think it just probably just needs to be faster with some kind of way of scaling up attack speed.
Yeah, I think people use it. It just feels a little clunky, especially when you're in endgame and like you want to quickly swap between abilities.
Yeah.
And
As I said,
like,
I'm pretty sure
makes
the speed will make a huge difference. That's
100%. Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah.
All right, a little extra question on weapon swap. So there was supposed to be a lock weapon tech coming in 0.2.
Yes.
Not in
so
yet.
Still haven't done it yet.
Where's mouse
we will
and
get there,
keyboard
we'll get
support
there.
for
I
controller
swear it
swap
should
that they
be in
said was
0.3, it
already
really should.
done?
Like hopefully they'll be getting one of those QOL videos before too long with that one in it.
Okay, cool.
He literally said
yeah,
in one of the interviews right before
Okay, and
0.2
then
that it
staying
was
on
done.
weapons just
He
for
says
one
it's
more
done.
moment.
It just needs
a
to be
lot of
implemented.
skills currently, well, like pretty much all skills are locked to a single weapon type. Are you guys open in the future to expanding that range of possibilities? I think like my friend Dreamcore, he used the example of being able to Falling Thunder using a mace and a quarterstaff. You know, it would like open up some cool tech and like unique item possibilities.
How about
Is that something you guys are
no,
ever looking to do,
Scott?
or are you firmly?
I
one skill, one
don't
weapon?
think that I would. I don't think that I would want to do it like just as a kind of a base feature like that.
I knew it.
Um,
I knew that shit was
Turn your
coming. I didn't
ideas
even hear
into
that shit. I
videos. Go to
predicted that. I didn't hear that
artlist.io
before.
And get everything you need, all in one.
Nope.
like a lot of the identity of the
No
weapons
free
is,
ad
you know,
space.
comes from
Get
that.
the
Now, what
fuck
I
outta
do
here,
think is
Art
important
IO.
is like, okay, if you want to do you know, something with Falling Thunder, like ideally weapon swap is the way you achieve that. And so if weapon swap isn't good, then that means that synergy isn't
See?
going to be good. So like that,
This is
I
what he's
feel
doing
the
right
way
now.
to
See
solve
this?
that is just make the weapon swapping better. That being said, like I do think that there
Like,
are.
what are you talking
can
about, dude?
make
You
things
didn't even
possible
answer the
using
question.
uniques,
He
right?
said-
you can have a unique,
Hold on.
you know, mace that lets you use quarter stuff.
Let me
that
pause
might
this
not
for a second.
necessarily be exactly that.
Okay, so what he said was, have you ever thought about opening up the gems for other weapon types? So, like using Falling Thunder on a mace, which makes total sense, right? As far as like fantasy goes, like, okay, you could use this like your big swing, big wind up, and you're hitting. And what he said is it has something to do with weapon swap. Think about that for a second. Am I just tripping, or does that make zero sense? I'm trying to think, like, so he wants to open up the skill gems for other weapons. So like you would use Falling Thunder with 2 different weapon types, right? And he said that that's what weapon swap is for. I can't possibly think how that makes any sense, or what he was even trying to get at by saying that. Dude, he's so good at this. Right? That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, he's so good. I need to hit him up, dude. I need him on the phone for me. Jonathan, if you for some reason you watch this live stream, I want to hire you, dude. You are so damn good at sidestepping questions and rebuttaling without making any sense that I 100% will hire you, dude. 100%. I got you. Yeah, it's wild, dude. Let me start playing it again.
combo, but you know, like what I'm saying is you can do stuff like that, and like more uniques is going to really be able to unlock those types of things.
That'd be
So
awesome.
that just comes down to like making more build enabling uniques that can do that kind of stuff. But I do think it's important to keep the identity of the different weapon classes, and yeah, it's the weapon swap where just making that better will make it those cross class things more viable.
I just heard the animators screaming from a few rooms away when you said they're going to allow that. So,
There's no way these things
God.
are
Well,
15
thankfully, it's a lot
million.
easier to animate on the PoE2 rigs, so
Thank
you know
goodness.
it should do. But
Yeah,
yeah, as I said,
Lord.
it really is more of a unique thing, I would say.
Okay, awesome. Well, that sounds cool. All right, so this is on progression and the Atlas skill tree. So presently, and this is I guess is more of a personal / casual dad gamer question for you.
Wait,
Sorry.
What tier is this?
Right now, it feels like there's a large time investment in to access not the entire trees, but just the initial like 2 points maybe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
To fight your
100%.
first audience for the king and everything. And I'm wondering if you guys are okay with what the progression's at. And I know you guys have been constantly lowering the amount of time it takes by upping splinter counts, making things more common.
yeah.
So I'm wondering,
Yeah, yeah.
do you think with the new updates
He's
you're going to be
insane.
in a better position? And
Oh, he's not
why
insane.
do you think
He's
you were
just-
in
he's
this
he plays a
position in the
different
first
game
place?
than
Like,
we
did you just miscalculate how long it was going to take
in his
people to
eyes,
reach
like
these things? 'Cause
going in, getting
so
an
it was
a long
inventory
time
full
ago.
of bases, especially when they're
there's
chess
a few
pieces,
things.
right?
So one of them is that for sure.
Getting
just
an
miscalculating
inventory
the amount
full of them
time,
and
like,
running
definitely
back
the
to
case.
town
But the other problem
every
is that we don't have enough
5
content
minutes. I
in
guess that's
each
fun
of the
for
kind
him.
of in-game league mechanics at the moment. Like, I mean, there was supposed to be more breach
Brother,
bosses
they
than
just need
one,
to
right?
add the
And, like, we have
motherfucking
the
currency
models, right?
from
We've got stuff that
PoE
we'll
1
do. Like, it will
back
happen
into
at some
PoE
point,
2.
right? And it's like
Full
all of that
stop,
stuff exists.
scouring,
It's just that, like, it
alteration,
isn't in yet.
everything.
And so it's like, we're,
Add it all back.
what that
They
sort
have
of led to is
failed
a situation
at
where you've got this
this,
big
dude.
gulf in the middle of the progression of each of those
It
leagues,
does
right?
not
Like, it's
feel
kind of
good
like you
picking
start
up
breach and
50
it's cool, but you start, and
bases,
there's a kind of a big gulf, and then you get to the end of it.
alteration
It's like,
or
there needs to be more of that middle stuff kind of in
transmute,
there to kind of
alt,
like, you know, fill into to
brick,
give you points to kind of have more of that
transmute,
progression
alt,
going
brick,
on. And so it's like,
vendor,
if,
vendor,
like,
vendor.
what I would say is,
It
like,
just doesn't
to
feel
run
good
with that
at
example,
all.
it's like I wouldn't consider breach
Nothing
to be
about that
finished,
feels
right?
good,
Like,
and the
there's
fact
more
that
stuff that needs to
some
be there
people
to make that a
actually
full
like it is scary to me.
thing, and that's what we need to be doing, expanding and automate that. So, like, I mean, there is tons we would do, right? Like with that stuff. Like,
Yeah,
the
dude, or
onboarding of it's
something,
not good
man.
enough.
Like,
Like, it's
fuck.
just it's all the progression stuff around it. It's just not enough content, right? We just need
It's like,
more
dude,
content.
he's like, it'll make
Now,
ground
unfortunately,
loot
I don't know. Like, I mean,
irrelevant.
we'll
Well, then
get
don't
more of
drop
it
as much
in
ground
030,
loot.
but I
dude.
don't know that I would say it's fixed yet in 030. Like,
Doesn't that just
that
fix
is
the
something
problem?
That we will be continuing to add. Like, it's one of the things that I
Like, the
think
reason why
is up
ground
there in
loot
terms of the
is
tiers and
irrelevant
problems
is
that we
because
have.
so much of it
You know,
drops
for
in
the
PoE
in-game.
1. That's
But,
why you filter
like,
most of it
I would
out.
say what I'm saying is, like, I think we know
And
what
it,
the problem
I,
is.
I
We know
don't
how to
know,
fix
I
it. It's
just don't
really the
understand
time
the
to make all
logic.
that content
It's
and,
the
like,
same
get all
thing
those
with the
bosses and get all
runes
that
and the
stuff done.
crafting bench,
So,
dude. It's like,
with each expansion,
he
whichever
says
way we're
this
adding
is
more
his
stuff,
justification
and, like,
for
that
the
would be better.
runes. Is he
But,
says
it will just take a little while to just get all of that.
it's
in and
just
get
like
it
the
done.
crafting
So,
bench.
yeah,
If we called it
I would just say, yeah, there's
the
more
crafting
content that
runes,
we
crafting bench
wanted to
runes,
add to all of
people
these than
wouldn't
what was added, and then
notice the
therefore
difference.
that'll come in
Or he says something
as we
like
go.
that.
There'll be like different choke points essentially.
It just
where
doesn't
you're
make
gonna
any
hit
sense.
these
You
different
just
tiers.
not
I mean,
the
you
same.
get more of the stuff, you know,
At all.
If you compare like Breach and PoE 1 to PoE 2, like there's just more stuff going on with it.
Like, you have to
in
do some
terms of, like,
fucking
the,
mental backflifts, dude, to
the
justify
the
that
different
that's the
types
same
of-
thing as
there's
the
like different
crafting
types of
benches.
breach encounters and the different breach bosses and stuff like that. Like, there's just more going on. So, like, that's the kind of thing you need, and like that level of content is what you need to kind of make it good. So yeah,
Okay.
more stuff will happen. We'll get there. Like, you know, it'll happen. But it just takes a little while to get to that point.
Right,
So,
and that's
you know,
that's
like,
probably
yeah,
you're
as I
probably
said,
like
might not-
90% correct.
in
on
030
that, for
we'll
sure.
make improvements, but
There
I think it's
are
probably more
there
in
is the
040
rare
that'll really
PoE
start
1
to come
player
together.
that
Okay.
like defends
How do you
PoE
feel
2
about the
and thinks it's a
dichotomy
great
between
game so
something like
far.
Breach Splinters, which
But they're
I'd
rare.
argue is rather
Most of
deterministic
if you
at
go on
this
like
point
especially like the PoE
versus an
subreddit,
audience with a king and accessing
it's
the ritual
it's,
boss.
it's a
and
shit
needing
show
to
over
find
there.
it and
Everybody
the
pretty
ritual and
much
defer it.
it's almost
do you
like
guys
they're
like that
split
there's
into.
differences there,
We're supposed to be one big
or-
I mean,
community, and like we enjoy the
personally,
games.
I do. Like, I like it when
But
content feels different.
right
as
now
much
it
as
feels like
possible.
everybody's at
like,
war.
There was certainly discussion, like when we were talking about being able to make, you know, like have it be early. Because one of the things we wanted to make sure we're doing is that, like, you know, for the earlier difficulty levels, it's easier to get the audiences and so on. And so
Dude, you know what
then we
I
started
was
talking
even
about
looking
how
at
we're gonna do
today?
that
I was
for the
eyeballing
ritual, maybe
playing
we need to
some
add
more
splinters to that. And I was like, no, I don't really want to
making a
just have
druid
it so that
because
every
I-
in-game pinnacle just works the same
I need
way.
to
Like, I like
scratch
there to be
my
feeling like there's
druid
differences in
itch.
how they'll work. So yeah, ideally we can sort of keep the flavor and different sort of ways of
D2?
interacting with these things if we can.
Okay.
I have
I'll throw this
I
in there.
play
Who made the
standard
call
on
to
Diablo 2,
vacuum
so
Breach
I have like a
Splinters?
bunch of
Was there
like
anybody who
good
just said, "It's
runes. I
time,
have
let's
some
do
good
it"?
rune word items.
It was probably Mark. I would say it wasn't me, but yeah, it's probably Mark. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That was a pretty cool change, I gotta say. Okay, this one has to do with
Yeah, dude,
monsters
it's kinda
specifically,
weird.
Jonathan, and it's something we chatted about in December, and I was really hyped about it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So when we last talked, you spoke about how normal and magic monsters will be different compared to rare monsters, not only in terms of the random modifiers that spawn on them, but the fact that, let's say, a vulture demon that is rare will have an extra actual ability compared to a magic or common vulture demon. I've never noticed those in game. Are those still in game? And I'm just
I
not
know what you
noticing
mean.
them.
I know what you mean. So it didn't actually happen as much as I had expected that to actually happen. So I think there's probably like 3 monsters or something like that ended up actually doing that, and like that was way less than what we expected. Like, I know one of them is like the Death Knights have an extra ability and like a few things like that. But you know, yeah. So like there's stuff like that, but it's like it didn't actually happen as much as I want. It's one of those things where, like, if I had time, I would.
I
go
think
and
that
do a bunch of that stuff. And, like,
because
we thought we were
Tencent
adding
owns
more than we
100% of
actually
grinding your
ended up
games right now.
doing. So
So I think that
what sort of
Tencent
ended up
was
happening
probably
more
like,
was,
yo,
like, more of the specific
we're
balance that happened, but
we're
less
coming
of
up
the,
on this, dude. We
like,
bought
extra
this.
abilities happened.
We
And
bought
we-
this
I
company,
think what
and they got
the
a
issue
banger
is that,
right
so
now, a
effectively,
banger of a
there's a lot less
title.
monsters that can be rare.
So
than
they just
can
wanted
be,
to collect on
the,
this shit.
than,
I really think that Jonathan
than
and Mark
the
make
monster set.
very
Like,
little
a lot of
decisions
monsters are
around
just
that
saved
place.
from being rare because
As
they
far
don't
on
have
like
rare
the
fight.
business side.
And
of
the
it.
intention to fix that is to make it so that when we have a monster where we say this can't be a rare because it's, you know, it doesn't have enough going on with it, that's where we wanted to add a new ability to make that happen. So it really is just more work to do that, but it's sort of hard to make that the thing that's more important than, like, you know, effectively, like, resources got pulled off and put onto a bunch of other things. And so that's like one of those things I really think I'd like going, but at the moment we just yeah, as I said, it's on like 3 monsters and we need to do more later, I'd say.
All right, I thought I wasn't saying it, so I just wanted to confirm that. And I was also curious. There are some monsters that instill like fear and horror into people when they play PoE 2. Are there any? Is there any specific one monster that makes you like clench up when you hear it or see it on screen?
I mean,
A lot of people
funny
hated
thing,
those
like,
vultures that leapt, you know,
Right,
4
right.
screens away. Like people hated those.
I mean, the funny thing in in-game is it's probably the frickin' what do you call them? Quill crabs are probably the thing that's the most.
Or the serpents.
But it's funny. The answer is so different in in-game versus not. Like in the campaign, my favorite monster is the Eternal Knight. Like I really love that thing. It's just like one of my favorite monsters, just because I like how like the counterplay you have to do with it and that kind of stuff. But you know, in in-game they just kind of end up dying, and it's like doesn't really matter.
I think that was my
But,
first hardcore death. Was to the Eternal Knight.
Right. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Before we get into actual Dawn of the Hunt specific stuff, 2 more questions about the general game. So one of them might be pretty quick. Originally, when you guys were pitching Path of Exile 2, the pitch was every zone is going to have like a boss in it. Now I know right now during early access, not every zone has a boss. Like all of them have like cool encounters and the like, but not all of them have a boss encounter. Is the plan still for every zone to have a big boss, or is it a little bit more dispersed throughout the campaign now?
God damn it! This dude's getting
I
paid
want
like a
that to happen.
motherfucker on this video.
I
Dude.
don't know if it'll happen for release.
He's running
or
ads
not.
like every 2
so we
seconds.
have bosses for these, right? Like all of the areas in the game, we have a boss that's for that area. It's just that not all of them are finished, and you know, it's about getting
trying
time
to make that
to
YouTube
finish
money,
making
dude.
them. So it's kind of like, okay, like certainly the promise of having 100 bosses will be like 100% like over delivered as far as like, you know, getting like once we get to release. As to whether or not every single area will have a boss at release, potentially not.
Okay.
But it's like we do have all the bosses sitting there like waiting to actually just get all the VFX and get all the stuff like there. Like it's just we just have to get them done. So like I eventually we will definitely get there because, you know, like as I said, the bosses are just sitting there. We just need to freaking make them. You know, like, you know, we have models, we've got rigs, we've got all that stuff. You know, it's just
That's what I think. I think that's
operation
ultimately
finished
what
and
happens
the
with
VFX
most
done and,
people,
like, all
at
the
least in
actual
my
design work that needs to happen
experience.
to
Like,
actually make it good. So
there's a lot of people
like,
that pop
as I
into
said,
like
still
my
the
chat
plan, it's
and
just
they'll
that,
be like,
you know, there might be
yo,
other
I'm
things that
trying
feel more
PoE
important to us to
2
do
or
rather
PoE
than
1 for
add
the
a boss
first
to
time.
one particular
And most
random
people
zone
like it.
during
No,
the campaign, you know?
that makes total sense. Excited to hear though that they're there.
A couple
they're
people
just
have said
doing
like,
for
hey, I don't even know
balance.
how I could go back. You know.
All right, before we get into the specific 020 and 021 balance and additions, I'm really curious. Obviously, you guys are getting a ton of critical feedback to the game, and Mark really likes bingo cards. What is the best place for us to put this feedback? Is it like on your forums, on Reddit, in posts? How do you guys like to consume this best? Especially, you're talking about like an elite cabal of balancers in the game. Like how do they like to read the feedback the best? Like what's the most productive, I guess?
Well, the
is what I'm
reason
asking.
the reason we like the bingo cards is because it forces someone to really
Yeah, dude,
consolidate
there's so
what
many-
is the most important
so many
things. Like
ways.
if they're going to make a bingo card, it's like you can't just like
So many
kinda go
ways,
and
dude, I have
arrange
to
them
make,
a
like,
billion
10
different little things
characters
where you
every
kind of don't
week.
know what's important. It's like these are actually the things that you are saying are important
One
to
for
us.
each
So that's kind of the reason why I
specific
like that. Now, in terms of like, so we obviously have got our community team. They're reading like all these different places. So like, I'm gonna get feedback like the overall like sentiment of like what people are complaining about the most from them, regardless of kind of where you post it. But in terms of like what I like to consume myself, that's why we like the bingo cards. But also like, you know, like someone who makes a video essay on YouTube, like that's the kind of thing where like I can sort of listen and understand the, you know, like there tend to be like they tend to be like if they're a creator with like you know like a lot of views, I'm gonna be paying attention to that stuff, right? So like that stuff is another thing that I like.
Yeah, you're
that I
damn
like to
right.
watch
You're
and
gonna be paying
understand.
attention to that
But
shit.
as I said, like in terms of just like random people posting, it really doesn't matter where you post because our community team will pick it up and they'll get it and they'll find it and deliver it to us.
So basically,
Okay.
he says he doesn't
More
give a
bingo
fuck,
cards are coming your way.
unless you're a big content creator. Then,
All right,
then
so
he's not hearing
Dawn
anything you
of the
gotta
Hunt,
say.
Jonathan. I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier with disengage and rake, but the spear skills, people loved the mobility that they added to the game. A lot of people, are
Brother,
using
they've
them
been
on
they've been developing this
builds or
game for
classes
half
that
of
are
that
actually using
time.
the spear
So
for damage and everything, right?
You know, I
Disengage
don't know how
especially.
much.
We saw, the race with like Angermus and everybody else just
I don't know how accurate
disengaging
that
through the
that
campaign, right?
criticism is. That
I'm
people
curious,
comparing that.
seeing that people really like the mobility the spear has, is this making you guys consider perhaps adding more mobility skills to future weapons, to previous weapons, just to give people more tools to move throughout the game?
Here's the question.
Well, I mean, it comes down to what's the
See?
feeling of the weapon supposed to be, right? In the
See?
case of the spear, you're talking about, a dexterous
Look at this,
melee
dude.
weapon.
Just completely avoids the
like,
question.
The quarterstaff is not as agile, but it's still more agile compared to the mace. You know what I mean? Like, once swords are in, they're going to be more
He's
agile
talking about
than the mace, but
movement
less,
skills.
potentially less agile than a spear. Like, you're just kind of wanting to get that feeling of like, of each weapon kind of has that feeling. So I mean, look, every weapon type should have some level of mobility, but like the spear really probably is about I always want that to be the thing that has the maximum mobility. That's why it sort of feels like that's what makes it feel different.
Yeah,
See, that wasn't
you
even
guys
his
achieved it.
question,
It's
dude.
pretty darn mobile. I love Thunderous Leap.
Then
I'm
he
also
switches
curious,
and he
just
just
as a brief
agrees with them.
follow-up,
Look at this.
Have you guys ever considered more
Hold on.
Blink like spirit gems for
See, so he tries to
dexterity and
reframe the
strength-based
question.
Classes? Because obviously this is an intelligence gem. We'll get
And,
into
and ask it
attributes
a
in just
different
moment.
way.
Right.
They're sometimes
Watch.
a little tight. Have you guys thought about like a
me try to find
ability
it.
the spear has? Is this making you guys consider perhaps adding more mobility skills to future weapons, to previous weapons, just to give people more tools to move throughout the game?
To give
Well,
him
I mean, it
more.
comes down to what's the feeling of the weapon supposed to be.
Okay,
right? In
I
the case
guess
of
I
the
can
spear,
kind
you're
of see
talking
how
about,
he tried to answer
dexterous
it like that, but
melee
dude,
weapon.
that's you know what he was asking
The
him.
quarterstaff is not as agile, but it's still more agile compared
So
to
I
the
guess
mace.
he
You know
is
what I mean?
kind of
Like, when
answering it
swords are in,
correctly,
they're gonna be
but
more agile than a mace, but
there
potentially
we
less
go,
agile
dude.
than a spear. Like
Now
you're
I'm
just
at
kind of
like
wanting to get that
400
feeling of
divine.
like
I didn't invest in a
of each
big
weapon kind of
character.
has that feeling. So I mean, look, every weapon type should have some level of mobility, but like the spear really probably is about I always want that to be the thing that has the maximum mobility. That's why it sort of feels like that's what makes it feel different.
Yeah, you guys achieved it. It's pretty darn mobile. I love Thunderous Leap. I'm also curious, just as a brief follow-up, have you
Yeah,
guys
you
ever
guys
considered more
nailed it. The game's super mobile.
Blink-like spirit
Dodge
gems
rolling,
for
dodge roll,
dexterity
dodge roll,
and
dodge roll,
strength-based
dodge roll,
classes?
dodge
Because
roll.
obviously this is an intelligence
Super
gem.
mobile.
We'll get into attributes in just a moment.
Right.
They're sometimes a little tight. Have you guys thought about like a flavorful way to do blinkish abilities on other archetypes?
Hell yeah.
If that happens, it's probably going to happen
Big
on
trade.
the
I had like 3
the
Mage
Dixon's
Bloods. I didn't even know I had.
class that we haven't yet
I
released.
thought I only had 2
Like
this whole
that's the one
time.
that would be in theme.
Because
With,
I forgot
that kind of
in
ability.
Freesia I got
Josh,
one.
let us
I got a
know
Mage
where-
Blood like
where-
within the first couple
where,
of
where
weeks.
you'll see that. So yeah.
Okay.
So
actually kinda
yeah, that one is a little.
I
bit
had
out
2
still,
from,
but,
Settlers and
there's a lot
Necro
of design stuff along those lines. I would say for that
Okay.
for that class.
All right, little tidbits for shadow enjoyers out there. All right. All
Really?
right, so
I get one every
The
league.
mobility front to crafting systems in Dawn of the Hunt. So Dawn of the Hunt introduced a lot.
As
of
long as it
different
takes
crafting-
me to get into Delirium maps and start getting some cluster jewel drops, is as fast as takes me to get a Mage Blood.
It's the little things that mean so
So you just get like, you get a ton of cluster jewels, and then you get some fossils,
systems or items,
and
to
you
the
can make
game.
a Mage Blood
Now,
like that
a lot
within
of
like
them
a
are
day.
really cool. I'm curious. How do you
For
feel?
sure. You
how
just
much
need
should
like
an average player be engaging with them in
20,
endgame? So
like
I'm not
20
even talking
cluster
about
jewels,
campaign, I'm
and you
talking
craft
during
like
the endgame, you're running
some
maps.
bangers that are
How
worth
often
like
should I be
6, 7,
touching
8
something
divine.
like
You get a
the
Mage Blood very
Recombinator?
fast.
Well, Recombinators are in particular like the one that I would say is the most kind of like that it does take a certain level of
Yeah,
person
dude, that's
to
like my
use that, right?
go-to
Like that is like
strat for getting a Mage
You have to
Blood
be a bit
fast.
of a grinder to be able to
That
use
and
that system
beasts.
for sure.
I'm gonna make another video
so,
about
like, that
my
one-
my beast strategy
I mean,
that
I
I
would
use.
say that one is sort of designed to
That
be
is
that
a
way. Like, it kinda has to be
like
just doing
playing
actual
the
works. And
economy
the funny
type
thing about
strat,
Recombinators,
but
I feel like I've said this before, even with the previous
it
designs,
works
but, like,
really well.
It is
Dude.
really hard
You
to
do
make
that with
something
the clusters and you're
with
straight.
that mechanic that isn't that both feels like
You'll have a mage blood in like no time, dude.
that it's
100%.
worthwhile for a player.
You
while
could even
also
do it
not
now.
Completely being
You could go
ridiculous
just buy a
from
bunch
the
of
perspective
clusters.
like
I don't know how many
making the,
chaos you
the
got,
item
but you could
game
buy
too
a bunch
easy.
of clusters
And it's
and,
really hard to get into a
do it
place
right
where
now
you kind
even.
of got like both of those two things. Like the benefit that
You could pick up a
recombination
4
gives you
flask
compared
for like
to,
170, 175.
to using other types of crafting methods is actually ridiculous, but yet it also feels completely like the chances are incredibly tiny to a player.
Yes.
So yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it always ends up like that. And we sort of had trouble with recombination a few times. As to whether or not players should use it more, I mean, we sort of the target was that people would be using it like once per expedition, and I guess I don't know if we've like completely succeeded at that.
Oh, okay.
So you know, yeah, like that's kind of one of those things. But yeah, that one I would say is definitely one of the harder ones. Like, for the other ones, like we want a variety. Like some of them you should be using all the time, some of them you should be using much more rarely. You know, we're about to add a bunch of these new. A bunch of these new runes and things like that. You know, like those ones are kind of intended to be like, you know, like they're a thing you want to find, like they're rarer, like, you know, they're cool chase drops to find that. Those will be relatively rare, but you know, still way more common than what the current rarest shit is. So you know, like, because we had that problem, of course, you know, that we found out, and that one. You know, like, so effectively, it should be a mix, in my opinion. We're kind of a little like want to really make sure though that you don't get to the point of like you get suddenly inundated with like too much all at once. So we just have to like balance that a little bit.
Okay. I'm curious about the socketable system, Jonathan. So right now you touched on a whole bunch of chase socketables are being
I
added to the
better
game.
be, dude.
And right now many of the stuff in game are meant to solve simple problems, right?
Yeah, I'm pumped
the
too,
rune
dude.
system was
I'm
pitched
like
as
super
kind
pumped.
of a
But yeah, I'm
replacement for Path of Exile once crafting bench. And
Yeah,
with
no
these
idea.
new chase socketables
better
being
be a
added to the
banger.
game,
People
it
are
seems
gonna
like that
straight
might
up
be
fucking throw a
fading a little bit
online
away.
riot.
Is there going to be other ways to solve these simple problems that people have in the future or imminently? Or?
Well, I get so I guess the feeling that we have is like as you kind of get deeper into the end game, then you'll get to the point where the base items that you're getting, because they're getting better, are kind of able to solve your problems more, and so therefore you don't have as much need to rely on the runes to do that. Now there'll be people who will argue that like they're still having to rely on them a lot for things like attribute requirements, and that's like another whole topic that we could talk about. So you know, like that's a thing for sure. So it's kind of like. But the ideal we kind of want to strive for is like as you
There we
progress
go.
to the end game,
Cluster
your items are
dual
getting
3
better.
divine
You
down.
no longer need, you know, like you might be a bit overcapped on res, you know, because you're getting the items getting better. Therefore, you're like, okay, you're getting to the point now where you can say, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice this rune slot, and that's right around the time when you're getting these like rarer chaser and other socketables coming in. So that's kind of like the feeling that we sort of want to achieve. And so then by the time you're like ultra top tier, you're like, I'm not.
No, you
using,
said it right in the
you know,
beginning
I'm
of
basically
the
not
of the
using
pod,
any
dude.
attribute
We're
or
getting one every
resistance
4 months from
socketables.
now on.
You know,
So he said.
I'm only using these like ultra chase like really things, or maybe.
So
maybe
that's
it's like,
confirmed.
you know,
that's out of
75,
Jonathan's
25,
mouth.
25
So
on you know, just to fix that one resistance that's not quite
I mean,
right.
we
That
all
kind of-
know how
that's
that
kind
goes,
of where
right?
you want to be as you kind of get through that progression.
So I guess
kind of
we'll
get
see,
that feeling
but-
of like another feeling of progress for the character.
Okay. On the resistance front too, we'll talk about attributes in a second. But resistances especially, I and many other players.
This
have
part's
found
real good, dude.
it
He says
so when you
attribute
find a
requirements
new
are
cool
not a
item,
thing
you
in
wanna
PoE
replace
1.
it, but it's going to replace an item that solves
about to say it
many
right
of your
now.
resistances, right? It turns into this whole game of gear shuffling, and this is primarily, I think, an early end game thing, right? You don't have a lot of currency to trade with, or maybe you're playing SSF, and this basically ruins your character, and it causes you to need to reshuffle everything. Are you guys aware that is kind of like the PoE 1 like gem system, where the whole shuffling constantly had to occur, and that you have to juggle these defenses to maintain that base level of LE res? And you think there are any solutions that could be added to the game? I know in Path of Exile 1 there was like the harvest resistance swap on items. Maybe that could be like an omen that could be found.
So
Ready to lose the hat and regrow the hair?
Damn it, son of a bitch.
With Choose by
These
Hints, you
motherfuckers
can
keep trying to
regain your
get free
hair
ad
and your
space on my
confidence.
YouTube channel, dude.
the
I'm gonna
harvest
sue him.
resistance swap. So I actually talked to Mark about this recently.
Okay.
And we were discussing about like whether or not we were happy with the harvest resistance swap, and like we were kind of like, the worry there is that it does make things a little bit too easy as far as the item game goes. Like for sure, like he was kind of like he sort of had the opinion that like, you know, like that's kind of like, it's part of what like. Yeah, it's sort of part of what sort of trivialized, like, you know, getting things exactly where you needed them to go. Like, he's kind of the opinion that was too powerful. We sort of talked for a while about this, and the issue that we were having is like, okay, So I'm like, okay, sure. So you could make something like that, but just make it really rare, right? And it's like, well, okay, but if it's rare, then you're not exactly solving your gear shuffling problem
Right.
because, like, you know, that you need to be doing that all the time. So it's kind of like we're in a bit of a hard place. So I actually don't really have an answer to how, like, we can improve this without kind of like compromising the item system, what we would consider to be too much of a way. You know, like, so this is I guess this is a potential concern. Now, the runes in theory kind of do address that because it's like you can temporarily kind of like use them. But then the concern is, okay, and like we've already sort of thought about this, but we kind of like are sort of probably just okay with it for the time being. Like, obviously, the concern is, and this is the thing Mark brought up, is like, okay, you can't take a socketable out. These chase runes, if you can't do that, it does mean that you're going to be like, okay, I'm not going to use it until I know my gear is perfect, right? Like you like there's this concern if they're chase. So we did sort of discuss whether or not we want to think about that. Now we are just going to, for the time being, just leave it how it is. But like, there's definitely this concern of like, okay, if you got to really chase socketable, you know, like you're going to save it for only an item that you know is perfect. And so yeah, we'll sort of see how that plays out. But you know, we'll have a look at that a little bit later.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, damn, he
I'm
said
also
it and I
curious
missed
on, like,
it.
the attribute front. It seems like
Oh, wait,
right
maybe he
now,
says it.
the introduction of spears, it became prevalent to me. And in 0-1, it wasn't as crazy. It seems like attribute requirements are super high for some items and even some gems. Are you guys aware that they might be... I don't even think it's that much. I think it's like maybe 10, 15%.
Dude, you can't ask a
high.
hardball
Are you guys
question.
looking
What's
into
up,
adjusting
dude?
that
Just
at
ask
all?
them out straight out.
You okay with that?
This is another one of those things that I kind of was thinking about. So I was kind of like, okay, I think what it comes down to is this. If you are playing a strength character and
Here we
should
go.
it be the case
Circle
that
talk
you don't have
time.
to worry about attribute requirements for strength gear, or should you still sometimes run into something where you're like, okay, I need to allocate a bit more extra strength for this? Like, should this be the case or not? It's currently kind of balanced to a point where it's like, you know, like
Better lift
you
some
have
weights,
to
bro. You
occasionally
need strength.
care about attribute requirements. And what that means, of course, is that if you then want to splash and do something else from a different character, that's like relatively harder, right? And so I was sort of thinking about this, and I was like, I might be open to lowering it a little bit down for gems to kind of allow for more of that like thing. I wouldn't be much, I think, like, you know, because I don't want to make it completely. Like, I feel like in PoE1 it was kind of most case the attribute requirements were pretty irrelevant for a lot of
See?
things. It mattered a little
What
bit, but
the
like not very
fuck,
much. You know, like
dude?
I don't think it
He
mattered
said
a lot. So
attribute
we did wanna kind of make
requirements
sure
in
that attributes
PoE1
mattered
were
more,
irrelevant.
but it's possible we overshot a little bit for the gems. I think for the
What?
gear, it's okay. I don't think that we've got like a huge problem there necessarily. Although there are maybe a few cases
that is
where like
the
people would argue that it's not
craziest,
right. I can definitely see the argument for gems coming down a little
dude,
bit.
that is the
it's one of those things that I wanna,
craziest fucking thing I've
definitely have
ever
another
heard
look
him
at,
say, dude.
because it's something that we can.
Is
we
that
can definitely
most
sort
of the
think
time
about changing
in
for sure.
PoE1,
the main thing
the
is just making sure that
attributes
people
were
can run,
irrelevant.
builds. But on some level, there is intended to be an
What?
optimization problem, right? It's like, okay, you got to be thinking like, okay, if I want to do this and you off-class thing, it's like now I'm making a sacrifice somewhere else. Like having
Dude,
to
he
allocate the
works there,
attributes
man.
Is
He
what
works
prevents you from making a
at
build
the
that's
place
just
where they
literally
make
the
Path
best
of
thing from
Exile
every
1.
class
Like-
on one build. Like that would be an ultra dominant. Like the attributes are the only thing really preventing that from being the case.
That's some
So
crazy shit that
especially,
dude just said right
you know,
now.
with more of the combo stuff going on, we just have to be a little bit careful about that. So, you know, like that's really the sort of the only control level we have around that. So yeah.
Okay. Now, yeah, especially on spears. Spears, I feel like those, like, because they encourage you to go in, like, sometimes all 3 attributes or 2 certain attributes, and it gets a little tough. That's just what I experienced. So maybe a little bit on that front, but
Is there a tri-attribute spear?
I believe that maybe I'm crazy. Chat's probably going insane if I'm wrong. I thought there was. I might be wrong. But I remember I was just struggling in 0-2 or 0-1.
Right.
I was not. And
Right.
it was rough. It was rough in 0-2.
Right. Okay. Understood.
Okay. So here's another curious one that I've seen a lot of debate about. So movement speed in Path of Exile 2.
Oh, here we go.
We're not
baby.
even going to talk about boots, Jonathan. I just want to talk about the baseline movement speed, and not compared to monsters or anything, just the overall movement speed of a character. And the monsters too.
Wait, he
A lot
might
of people
redeem
feel like
himself,
it's too
dude. Hold on.
slow. And like a gauge people give is when you get Hare's Foot, that boon in Trial of the Sekima, it's like 30% increased movement speed. People are like, oh, that's where we should be, right? How do you feel about it maybe being a bit too slow? Do you think it's fine where it is?
Atlas AI voiceover feature
Oh, you
allows to
son of a
turn your
bitch,
words
you
into
ads,
voices you
motherfucker.
never thought you had.
All right, hold on. All right.
Just in general.
That was a
Well,
cliffhanger to
as
get in
far
out of.
as I know, and I could be wrong about this,
Okay.
but
There you
as
go.
far as I know, the baseline movement speed in PoE 1 and 2 is the same. Like, I don't believe it is actually different. The difference is in, like, the things you're doing, right? Like the skills that allow you to move all the time and all that stuff, right? As far as I'm aware. Now, as far as movement speed is concerned in general,
I'm sorry,
I
dude.
don't want to spoil anything, but like we are working on things around this for 030. We do have ideas for what we want to do. I don't want to break the combat system. Like if we just buff
Sorry,
movement
dude.
speed for
That
the player, like the
shit's so
baseline, it would break the
fucking
combat system in a
funny,
lot of ways.
dude.
Like we'd have to do a lot of stuff. There's like animation. It would be a huge deal.
Yeah.
But we have some ideas. You know, but we'll talk about those a little bit. Like just probably 030 announcement.
Dude, he's the
I would
master,
say we'll
man.
be talking about that. But yeah, we've
I
got some
swear
ideas.
to God, I
Like,
need to get this
think
dude
that
working for
there
me
is something we can
somehow.
improve
I don't know
here,
what I gotta pay him,
that
dude,
will
but I
be
gotta
the
get
best
this
of both
dude on the
worlds,
phone
still
for
making
me.
combat mattering while still, you
He
know,
has
like,
to
being
sell
something that can
for
help
me.
players with this concern. So like, there's stuff that we can do. But
So maybe
yeah, I
something
guess I
that's like a
wouldn't
little
really.
bursty, right? It's not maybe tied to gear. It's
Excuse me,
just
sir. Can you
every
tell me
so
why
often
this
you
ink
get a little
cartridge
dopamine
did
rush.
not
so we'll
work?
see-
But
we'll see about stuff like that.
it's
Yeah, I
the
definitely
same
understand
exact
the problem,
one
right?
we sent you
So
last
in
time.
terms
It's
of
the
tier
it's the
one
same exact thing.
issues that we have that we want to address in 030,
Oh.
this is in the list, right? Like this
okay.
problem that people have. Like, you know, like I mean, we've got our list of tier 1 issues that we're like, we
Insane,
can't release 030 without, you know, like even though I said we weren't locking features. I mean, some of the things that you see, some of these things we're like, here's the tier 1 issues
We're working on it.
this is one of them. This movement speed concern that people have is a concern. But as I said, I just don't want to ruin the combat system too much. So that's why we have to be a bit careful.
Okay. No, that's fair. Completely swapping gears, Jonathan. You guys added a pretty cool item in 020 in the Grand Project Precursor tablet. And it allows you, if you use it in a tower, it allows you to go into any map node or in the radius of that tower. A very interesting person brought up the fact, oh, maybe this is a little bit of an experiment to bring this as a core ability to towers. It makes Atlas traversal so much smoother. You know, we can get to cool destinations faster, skip around to the maps we'd like to play. Is there any chance in your mind that this would go core?
I don't think that I want something like. I don't think I'd want that to be core to towers, but like, I guess if you're saying things like that, it sort of implies that you're not finding the things you want to find easily enough, which is the thing that I'd be looking to address with a concern like that. So that's kind of how I'd see that. Like I said, if you feel like that's necessary, it's probably because there's something wrong with the way that the
He's too good.
you know, like the amount of stuff you're finding. So there's definitely something that we need to address there. Like there are some concerns around the stuff for sure.
He's
I mean,
too
one thing
good
that we
at,
just actually I don't know whether it was
at
deployed
dodging the
or
questions,
not.
sidestepping,
It might be in 021
and like,
actually,
you know,
because like right now there's this like thing where there's a horrible imbalance of
he just
of,
sidesteps him
what
and
maps,
throws a
like-
quick
like-
right hook, and this was
like
like,
some
oh
maps are way
my
more
God,
common than others.
next question.
You know, and this is something that we have a fix for. As I said, I wasn't sure whether or not it went out in a point release or whether or not it's a 021. I think it's in 021.
I think it's coming in 021. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's in 021. So, you know, we're effectively making it so that like the map's much more even. So like you won't see nearly as many like you know, I think it's Hidden Grottos, isn't it? The one that you know,
Hidden Grottos.
you get
Yep.
yeah, you get constantly. Yeah, like stuff like that, like will improve a lot. So I think that'll help as well. Like I think it really just comes down to balance of like when you find things, where you find them, that kind of stuff. Like to me, that's really what it is. And I guess it also comes down to sort of like the other reasons you might want to be like skipping more of the Atlas content is that you're not feeling like you're seeing what it is you want. And I guess that's another larger issue with towers as well.
I think another thing that people really would like is more just player agency, right? To be able to, like you kind of said, run the maps that they'd like to run with the mechanics that they'd like to run, and the Grand Project tablet allows that, right? If you see a breach and a ritual and everything on your favorite map layout, but it's on the opposite side of the tower and you got to run 10 maps to get there, you know, it kind of is a feels bad moment. But just more like...
There's actually so that is a broader issue that I've noticed with the current way the Atlas works, which is not something that we initially... It's actually comes down a little bit to the overlapping tower thing as well. And it's only sort of a realization that we came to recently, so...
Dude, he's a straight fucking evasion stacking game director, dude.
Okay,
It's
so
the craziest build
there's
I've ever
something-
seen.
There's this issue of like...
This fool
if
just
you-
one-shots fucking
if you know in
interviewers left and
advance
right, dude. It's wild.
that something isn't the best,
I hope he puts out a build guide.
then
I could use that
feels
shit for
bad
my
to have to
fucking
kind of go
sales
through
gig.
it, like already knowing that it's not the thing you wanted. And so what I'm talking about this is like, okay, and this is something that the old Atlas, like in PoE 1 Atlas didn't have, that PoE 2 Atlas does have, that's like, you know, just to think about, it's like, okay, so the overlapping towers thing is a great example, right? It's like, if you know that overlapping towers is the best thing, then every time you see a non-overlapping tower, you're like, oh, I have to just get through this so I can get to the next overlapping tower. And like, let's just say, for example, and like this is a terrible idea, so I'm not actually going to do this, but I'm just like, let's just say, for example, that we had a mechanic where, and I wouldn't do this for like 10 reasons, but that like when you run a map, there's a random chance that it turns into a tower, right? Let's just say, for example, we had that mechanic. What that would mean is that now you, at any time, could...
Holy shit. Damn, this dude's cleaning up on
get
ad
the best
revenue.
thing. So you don't feel bad about running maps that you know can never be the best, because at any time the maps could be the best. And this comes down, I think, to the sort of core of
like
like
the seventh
RPG
ad we've
itemization
watched.
as well, where it's like one of the reasons why it's good is because, like, you know, the next rock you turn over could contain the mirror drop, right? So it's like you don't feel bad about killing monsters, even if, like, you know, like, assuming we get everything right, that is, you know, because it's like, okay, there could be a good thing like right around the next corner. It's like if you knew that every monster that you killed was going to drop nothing. Like, let's say, so here's another example of a thing that would be similar, right? Let's just say that all the monsters in a map drop nothing except the boss, right? Let's just say that that's what you had.
Okay.
If you had that, killing all those monsters would feel like a chore, because like there was no chance of that ever returning anything for you, right? You're just like, I just want to get through this to get to the boss, right? And so you've kind of got a similar thing going on, but on like a higher level with the Atlas system, where it's like, you know that this part isn't the best, therefore,
Dude, that's how the
like, I feel
fucking
bad having to
campaign
run through it.
feels,
Like, if
dude.
they had a chance of being the best, it would be fine. So I feel like we need to find a way to make that more the case. And like I was sort of discussing, like, as a random example that's kind of a bit related, although not exactly the same, of like, you know, in PoE 1, any map could just randomly spawn a breach.
Yes.
For example.
Yes.
In PoE 2, you know when you don't have one. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like there's this like so like that sort of element sort of like has a thing there. So there is something to this, and like I can see that there's a problem. I just need to sort of work out exactly how we're gonna. And the things that like as I said, the thing I just said there before, like that would solve the problem. I just hate it for 10 other reasons. I'm just sort of putting that out there as like to evoke the idea of how it would feel to you if that was how it worked. You know what I mean? So like that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about how to sort of resolve this problem. So we do need to do something. Like I like a lot of what the tower mechanic does, but like there's still not something quite right about it. Like there's some stuff we have to do, and I also really love that sort of feeling of exploration thing going on. But you know, I guess something we didn't realize is like, when you can see things in advance, you have to be really careful that you don't let the amount of importance that can have be too high, because that undermines the feeling of everything else. So like that's kind of like a thing I guess we need to think about. So yeah, there's certainly some stuff to think about here. We need to work out what exactly we're going to do about it.
All right, yeah, I think you're touching on the exact feeling I had like when going back to Path of Exile 1. And I always had that feeling of surprise or mystery going into all the maps, and that's just not in PoE 2. So I'm glad that it's on your guys' radar. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's maxed that shit out. He's
Oh, I
trying
mean,
to
in
collect that
0
check.
we did intend to improve
I don't
that
blame him. I
situation
can't
by
hate on
adding
him
more
for
random
that.
things.
I
And
don't give a fuck.
so
I
having
just
more
hit
random
skip
things that
button.
aren't just the leagues is also a way to sort of improve that. And so 0 helped with that to some degree. But I do think that there's still like an issue
Get your
around
money,
that
try.
to think about.
Okay, awesome. Okay, let's see. I know we're running short on time. I know you have to run in about 25 minutes. So
Yeah.
I'm a little bit curious on, let's see here. I'd love to touch on races for just a moment, since you guys are running quite a few of them. Okay. So they're obviously back for Path of Exile 2. You guys have been running them pretty consistently. I'm curious, is there anything in particular you guys are trying to glean while watching these races? Like, are they influencing any balance decisions, or are they showing you, you know, oh, well, this part of the campaign could be improved in a certain way? I'm really curious to hear. Or are they just pure for entertainment?
I wouldn't say that we learn much about things from that perspective beyond just what races are doing, right? There's obviously changes we could make for races in particular. It doesn't influence too much about the rest of the campaign, I would say, just because like the things that they're doing are really just quite outside the norm of what normal players experience. So yeah, it really is more of just a, like, you know, fun thing we enjoy doing, that, you know, like that's more of what it's about. I wouldn't say that there's like a kind of development reason to run them per se.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This is a very early game question, Jonathan. So and the guy I'll use him as an example is my dad. So a lot of very new players to ARPGs, they started playing PoE 2. It was like their first ARPG ever, and a lot of them are unaware of the importance of certain items in the game, like crafting currency. Right? A lot of people like will just hoard it, even though the currency says, "Hey, use me on items." Right?
I literally don't know anybody
Would
that
you be
does
open
that.
to the idea of like maybe doing a very
Sounds like it's
short
just his
quest
old man that does that.
tutorial in Act 1 to put people on this path? Because once I showed him how to do it, Jonathan, dude, he's ground more than I have in PoE 2 this season.
I actually already had this idea, and it's already something that we've got in the works. So like I just want to show everyone, like, because like okay, a major experience like a major difference in experience is just transmuting your weapon. If you transmute your weapon, you're gonna have a way different time than if you don't know to do that. So that's something we're going to explicitly say, like, okay, here is a quest where, it's going to drop a transmute, it's going to tell you use your weapon, like, cool. Actually, like, to really make sure that new players know to do that.
Okay, that makes me so happy to hear for a lot of the new people coming to the game. That'll be great for, like, 1.0's launch and all that, too. Cool. Okay, back to item questions. So, Path of Exile 2, unique items. A lot of the items right now, they fall off as you go into endgame and you scale your character, but it's not because they aren't cool. A lot of them are super cool, but they have no way to scale, past a certain threshold in the game. Are you guys okay with the number of uniques that are in the game, are cool, but just become a little blip in a character's journey? Or are you looking into really reinvigorating some of these items?
I would say, I mean, look, there are some that we definitely need to make more powerful, but I would say that, like, a lot of the reason is just because we started working on the lower level ones and we're only getting, like, only since 010's launch, I would say, have we really been focusing on the more high level stuff. And there's more of that stuff coming. I mean, we have more uniques coming, in 021. Like the focus on unique design now is that sort of in-game, like, like later on stuff that you can use viably on a character going forward. So like that is definitely the case. At the same time, there's a bunch of stuff out there that people would use if it ever dropped, right? So like it's funny because like we were actually looking at, so because Mark and I actually did this exercise recently together. We're like, okay, so like what's the stuff I'm excited to drop, right? And like we started looking through some Unix and like we were just like, man, we forgot we even added this, right? Like it's so rare. There's like 12 Astramentuses that have dropped on the live realm. You know what I mean? It's like well, no, that's not actually accurate. There were 12 in trade. There were like 12 in trade at the time that we looked. It's like man, like okay, we worked out. I actually worked out recently because I've actually been recently writing simulator so I can like more easily work out some of what this going. Like we have like things we can do to work this out, but like it wasn't easy enough. I want to be able to just at an instant's notice as we're changing balance numbers, like the result on the item drops are. So I started writing a tool.
Can't
for
tell
that.
if that's him or
and I found out that
like
an Astramentus will drop every 45,000 divine. And it's like, okay,
I'm running at almost a gig though, so I don't
it's like
see
how many
that can be
years do you
possible.
have to wait?
That's crazy.
And it's like, okay, we're not in the right universe here as far as like the drop rate of something like that. So yeah, they effectively do not exist as far as a regular player is concerned.
So these drop rate buffs
like,
are pretty
okay.
substantial. Then I didn't.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are. They're very,
Wow.
very, very substantial. I mean, look, it's like I think in trade at the time we saw one was like selling for like 600 divines, and I'm like, this is actually technically cheap compared to the drop rate of this thing. It's like people don't even know when this drops, so they're just setting it at like a thing. So yeah, that needs to change, obviously, right? Okay. And like one of the
Damn,
key
they're
actual
making some
differences.
motherfucking money
This is
tonight.
a little bit inside of things we don't normally talk about, but whatever, I'll talk about it anyway. So like one of the changes that PoE 2 had that I think that enriched, we're actually going to change this back, and this is like a major thing that will improve things, is in PoE 2 the chance of a unique dropping
Jesus Christ, dude.
is scaled by the chance of the drop pool of that type of item dropping. So what I mean by that is like unique amulets are like rarer because they're an amulet, But in PoE 1, this was not the case. Like, all the uniques were in one pool that then, like, you know, they all had an equal
man,
chance.
you
I mean,
want-
not
or
equal,
not?
right? There's rare and there's common ones.
I get
But
it, yeah.
being an amulet didn't affect the chance for it to drop, right? In PoE 2, the reason why Astromentus is, like, so completely ridiculous is because amulets being a rarer, like, thing just in the base pool anyway, means that the unique version of the amulet is now incredibly rare, like, to a point where they might as well not exist. So what you'll see, at, like, you know, as a starting point is that jewelry that are uniques will be way more common than they currently are, just because we're now putting them back into the regular pool with the other uniques that they can roll together. And so that's like an example of the kind of thing that will improve it. And that's like,
The
yeah,
thing is
like
worth like 40 divine.
I
Yeah, I don't understand why
some
people
of the
keep
stuff
trying
just
to
doesn't have an
shortchange it
opportunity to be a
15.
chase item you're even thinking about, because it's so rare you just don't expect it. It's like not even a thing, right? I mean, it's like effectively Mirror of Calandra tier at this point, and that's not what we really intended, and something that is going to change. So.
That's wild to hear. Hey, Astromentus stonks. Okay, here we go. Right now. Awesome. Maybe I'll find one. That's cool. Okay, so a little bit of a focus now as we get to the final section of the interview, dude, on the future of PoE 2. So just onward. One thing I'm really curious about, and I think a lot of other people are as well, many ARPG veterans have been conditioned to view the campaign as a blip in the journey. You know, you start there and you get through it as fast as possible. Obviously, Path of Exile 2 has been trying to change that. There has been tremendous discourse on this fact, you know, in 0.1 and in 0.2. I'm curious, taking all this and looking at it and looking toward the future, maybe even Acts 4, 5, and 6, how do you see the Path of Exile 2 campaign evolving?
Well, I would say that most of the stuff around this really comes down to the kind of like play speed concerns that people have. So it's like, if we can address that, I don't think people are going to be concerned about like campaign length anymore. Like, I would say that, like, it's not necessarily the case that PoE 2 is that much longer, if it even is that longer at all, than PoE 1. If you would think of it in terms of, like, total distance you need to actually walk and number of monsters you need to kill. It's just that, you know, like, it's just the pace is the concern. So if that is higher, or if, like, there's ways to be that faster in that way, then I think that those kind of concerns will definitely go away or down significantly at the very least. At the same time, it's not helping that cruel difficulty exists, right? Like, that's certainly something that is like makes the experience worse. And like, it's not like we want cruel difficulty to be there, right? Like, it's a compromise that exists until the point we can get more content in. So like, basically, once we can remove that, I think that will help a lot. So that I think it's really the combination of those things that are the primary reason why you know, why there's a lot of concern over this. And so effectively, so long as we can fix both of those problems, then I think that stuff will be a lot better.
Okay, no announcements here, but there was an interview you did for 020 about Acts 4, 5, and 6, and how it was a little confusing, like the answer. Do you think that they'll be coming one by one, or do you think they'll all be dropping at the same time? I don't know if you know the interview I'm referring to or not.
I just don't. I unfortunately don't want to announce any.
Fuck you, man. He's like trying to waste my time. It's just really aggravating.
Okay, that's totally
do
fine.
shit like that.
All right, I get it. Okay, in the future, now you touched on some archetypes.
I'm gonna give it away for
fully
10
explored
fucking
right now.
divine
You might
just because that
actually
guy
be
fucking
buffing
pissed
stuff
me
up
off so much.
in
Jesus
this league.
Christ.
Is fire on your radar at all? Because compared to
All right, let's see.
a
What
hold
did he
and
just say to you? That
lightning,
was
it
like
just feels a little
super
lackluster.
distracting.
And I don't know if you think that's just a like design.
At the very least. At the same time, it's not helping that cruel difficulty exists, right? Like, that's certainly something that is
that. There has been tremendous discourse on this fact, you know, in 0.1 and in 0.2. I'm curious, taking all this and looking at it and looking toward the future, maybe even Acts 4, 5, and 6, how do you see the Path of Exile 2 campaign evolving?
Well, I would say that most of the stuff around this really comes down to the kind of like play speed concerns that people have. So it's like, if we can address that, I don't think people are going to be concerned about like campaign length anymore. Like, I would say that, like, it's not necessarily the case that PoE 2 is that much longer, if it even is that longer at all, than PoE 1. If you would think of it in terms of like total distance you need to actually walk and number of monsters you need to kill. It's just that, you know, like, it's just the pace is the concern. So if that
I guess now,
higher,
I guess
or
it's
if
like,
like there's
that's
ways
true.
to be that faster
That's
in that way,
probably true now that I think
then
about it.
I think that those kind of concerns will definitely go away or down significantly at the very least. At the same time, it's not helping that cruel difficulty exists, right? Like, that's certainly something that is like makes the experience worse. And like, it's not like we want cruel difficulty to be there, right? Like,
Damn, bro. He's getting paid
EVE
again.
Online is a
motherfucker.
vast universe, alive with the unrelenting activity
that money.
and combined history of its players.
It's a compromise that exists until the point we can get more content in. So, like, basically, once we can remove that, I think that will help a lot.
Okay.
So that I think it's really the combination of those things that are the primary reason why why there's a lot of concern over this. And so effectively, so long as we can fix both of those problems, then I think that stuff will be a lot better.
Okay, no announcements here, but there was an interview you did for 020 about Acts 4, 5, and 6, and how it was a little confusing, like the answer. Do you think that they'll be coming one by one, or do you think they'll all be dropping at the same time? I don't know if you know the interview I'm referring to or not.
I just don't. I unfortunately don't want to announce any.
Oh, you
so,
don't.
You'll just have to
Okay.
you'll just have to
In
wait
fact,
for that.
you know what I'm gonna do?
Okay, that's totally fine.
This is how much that
All right, I get
bothers
it.
me when people do
Okay,
this, watch
in the
this.
future, now you touched on some archetypes not being fully explored right now, and you might actually be buffing stuff up in this league. Is fire on your radar at all? Because compared to a cold and lightning, it just feels a little lackluster. And I don't know if you think that's just a like design or damage or anything.
I mean, okay, so I definitely would agree that lightning is in a better place than cold and fire. I don't fully know if I would agree that cold and fire are necessarily like that far apart from each other. This actually comes down, I think, to the thing I was touching on earlier about like the ability for a skill to scale. Like lightning, just kind of like when you're designing a lightning skill, like it bouncing around between enemies is kind of like just one of those things that tends to happen, right? Because it's lightning, right? Obviously it should do that. And so what that's kind of led to is like when you're not thinking too hard about scaling, lightning just sort of naturally scales more because it can hit more targets, because it kind of auto targets and bounces. You get those kind of skills that allow it to kind of get that kind of in-game clear ability. And fire and cold, it's like I think we have to be a bit more explicit in order to make that happen. So I would say that's kind of the reason. I think, like, I mean, obviously there's going to be balanced numbers and there's going to be a million other things and they're unique and there's like 20 other reasons why this can matter. But I think just from the base level in terms of scaling, like lightning just as a design space tends to scale more even when you're not thinking about it. And then the other two, yeah, not so much. So I think that's kind of part of why lightning in particular is kind of like, you know, ended up being something that has got more of that going on.
Lightning and cold have like utility too, with like chill, freeze, electrocute.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
I mean, look, fire sort of has its whole burning thing. I mean, look, I mean, the whole difference between damage types things is also something that I think that we didn't explore enough yet in the unique space as well. So what I mean by that is, I don't think that conversion in PoE 2 matters that much because like there isn't enough kind of going on that like allows that to matter, if you know what I'm saying. So like it's kind of like that kind of stuff. I like we need to like more mechanics, you know, uniques, like more sort of things in the game will kind of hopefully address that and like make those elements like matter more in terms of what makes them unique and different because of like what's available to use in the rest of your toolbox.
Would you guys consider support
I mean,
gems to convert elemental damage at any point?
I mean, it's not like, I mean, the thing is, right now, I don't think the conversion is really that valuable thing. Like, not, like, I don't think there's enough kind of going on. And it's like, quintessentially, like, okay, so Acolyte of Chalula, for example, right? Like, the Chaos conversion is just, like, not really valuable like it should be. And it's just because, like, there's not really anything about that that's kind of, like, important enough. So,
it's
it's
annoying.
like, when this was designed, it's like the assumption was, oh, like converted to chaos is valuable, right? Like it was valuable in PoE 1, therefore it's valuable here, but it's kind of not because like of the other tools that are available. And so then it kind of ends up making that class like not as cool as it should be for that reason. So it's like, then we either have to think, okay, do we need to be adding tools that are going to make that more, or do we need to be adjusting how that class works? Like, well, you know, we obviously have to work this out, you know, like make some other changes potentially, but it's like that kind of stuff. It's like, sometimes there is just a PoE 1 brain going on in terms of like, oh, like this is valuable in PoE 1, therefore it must be valuable in PoE 2. Like, you don't even think that fully through, right? Because you like to even understand why or it is or is not kind of depends on a full understanding of like every other, you know, the whole unique metagame. The thing is like tomorrow a unique could come out. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying tomorrow a unique could come out that like that make Acolyte of Challia suddenly amazing, right? You know, it's like it's completely down to like the context in which it exists in. So what I'm saying is like, yeah, it's
It's going to come out next week, is what you're saying. Right.
I'm not going to promise anything. I don't actually know for sure the case, but what I'm saying is like there's that. element going on. And so
Okay.
that I would say is part of the problem. Like, we just need to make sure that we're like understanding a bit more about like what about. But look, it's easy once you've got players playing it and you can see what they're doing and you can see that they haven't found anything, right? It's okay, well, if they haven't found anything yet, that probably means they're not going to. We probably have to like actually come up with something to juice this particularly, whether that's the class or whether that's unique or some other element, to make that possible. We just need to sort of make that happen. And I'd say conversion in general, but Acolyte of Chalia in particular, like has like problems around that.
So you guys, you're segueing perfectly into a rapid fire question. Acolyte of Chayula, we have like 23 Acolyte players out there, and they really want some love. You guys aware? Is that maybe one of the candidates for a buff in?
Oh, definitely, for sure. Yeah.
It is?
Okay. For sure.
Awesome. Fantastic. Good to hear. Okay, if you're not going to answer campaign questions, how about let's do one more endgame question, then I got a set of really quick questions to answer.
Okay.
So, the infinitely expanding Atlas, as more people have played it, like I said, 6 months, going into like 1.0, whenever that comes out.
He said he's not going to answer any more campaign questions.
Going
That's
into 1.0?
fucking rich. Holy fuck, dude. I think I'm going to buy something. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but I feel like I just need to buy something right now.
Well, I guess what I would say about that is basically, I mean, we sort of covered this before, right? Like where I was discussing the towers overlapping and all those various things.
Yeah.
That kind of really comes down, all comes into it. So what I would say is like, I don't think we've found it quite yet.
Okay.
I hope that I personally love the whole Infinite Expanding Atlas thing, like as an idea, like I want to make sure that can happen. But obviously, like nothing, if it doesn't, if we can't make the end game awesome, then we will change it, right? Like everything's like that.
Final,
now, as I said, I think we've got a lot more to try before we have to change how that is. But that it's like nothing is sacred ultimately if it means getting in the way of like something being good. So like I want it to be there. We'll see what happens.
Okay, cool. All right, lots of rapid fire questions here, and then we'll close out with a question that I'm sure that you'll answer. You won't dodge me out of it at all. Okay, so div cards. We saw mention the winner in all three races is going to be able to make one.
Yeah.
Are they coming soon? And if they are, any changes from PoE 1? Are they going to work the same?
Bring in Heist.
Soon. Fundamentally, they work
Add
similarly,
Heist, and I'm
but
all in, dude.
we do have some.
You guys add Heist into the
like,
game, and I'll fucking play that
bit,
shit.
Like, I mean,
you can tell me. It's okay. Nobody's listening.
It's like there were some just cases in PoE 1 where you kind of had like some of the things you could pick kind of like were a bit silly, like in a way. Not okay. That's not quite getting to it. It's like I don't want just like 20 copies of div cards that are effectively ultimately doing the same thing, just because they got slightly different variations, same like exact stuff. So we're gonna control that a little bit more this time to kind of make it so that like, okay, if you're the div card that's this, then like that's your thing, and like no one else is going to be stomping on that. You don't kind of have like a billion ways to all just give you like a mage blood.
Okay.
Like in PoE 1, you know what I mean? Like, so we want to just do some adjustments there. But that's kind of more of a thing around, the people making the div cards rather than the thing around finding them. So I don't have anything to talk about on that side yet, but it won't be too far away. We do have some pretty nice looking art.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. So,
Is it going to be different from Path of Exile 1, like brand new art for PoE 2? The div cards?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's exciting. Okay. Is the plan to still allow players to log into separate accounts via couch co-op? Because I know that was originally
that is the plan. That will probably be the thing that the console guys do after they've done the ability to transition from mouse and keyboard to controller on the fly, like on the fly. So once they're done with that, we'll probably work on the couch co-op different accounts.
So then what was he talking about when he said that was already done?
I've heard chat is going wild about this, and I know you've talked about it ad nauseum, but I'm still curious. Any more options for armor or defensive layers related to it potentially coming in 0.20 or 0.3?
I don't have anything to say about it at this point. Like, well, this is one of those. Like, this is probably going to be another freaking multi-day conversation with Mark to work out the details of. So once PoE 1's out, we'll probably have a long discussion. I'm certain about. Certainly something that people are very keen for.
Okay. Any timeline on adding passive tree layouts to the game? We know that those are coming in PoE 2. Any timeline on those?
You mean the pathing? The pathing. The thing where you know what? I need to follow up on that again. I actually don't know what the timeline was on that one. I need to go talk to the UI guys about when that will be. Hopefully, I mean, look, I want to get it in, so it won't be too far away.
Okay, cool. Would it be possible to add an option to disable auto-targeting either as a global setting or on a skill-by-skill basis? I've heard some people complaining about that a little bit.
So I have a huge thing about this.
Uh-oh. Not a rapid-fire question.
But it's like, this is not a rapid-fire question. It's a very complicated thing. Okay, so like, because I've got like crazy theories about why this is suddenly an issue and like all these other things. Like, it's like a whole... So because like, okay, PoE 2 and PoE 1 targeting is identical. There is no difference between these, right?
Fucking
and
conspiracy
targeting in
theorists.
PoE 1 was not a big thing that people were worried about. Like, this just wasn't a thing. And so I'm like, why is it different in PoE 2? Because people have been saying, okay, it's like, there's a lot of people talking about parallax error, right? So what we're talking about here is like, targeting is relative to your feet, right? Mm-hmm. And like, to me, that makes total sense, because I'm like, okay, like when you click, that's exactly where you move to. When you right click, that's exactly where the projectile flies over, right? Like, it seems to make sense to me. And so I always assumed that this was how every ARPG worked. Like, I actually just assumed that. Like, I didn't actually know, and I never really thought about it before, because it was
Let
just
me
so
guess,
obvious
dude,
to
we
me that
didn't
that's
go
how it
to
should
the
be.
moon either,
But
right,
then,
Jonathan?
when people started posting about this, I'm like, okay, I'm actually going to try out just like a bunch of other games and just see, like, really look at them, how they work. And I noticed that, like, okay, the first one I tried was D4, and I'm like, okay, they actually do this differently. They have it so that when you right click, the projectile exactly moves to the mouse. And to me, I'm like, this is insane, actually, because like when you click in the location, you run to a different, like you run, like if you click to your right, you'll run right. But if you right click there and fire a projectile, you'll fire diagonally downwards. And I'm like, okay, like, and yet this is more intuitive to people. And so I'm starting to think like, okay, well, at least to some people, right? So I'm starting to think like, okay, well, what's the difference here? And then I
Yeah,
started
man,
thinking, like,
alien bases on the
a big
moon, man.
change in PoE 1 and 2 was WASD. And when you're using click to move, every time you click, it's like reinforcing the fact that everything's relative to your feet, because it's like, that's where you move to, right? So you're like, click, you're moving there every single time. Every single click is like reinforcing this like way of thinking about where things are relative to your character. But when you're in WASD, oftentimes you are effectively just saying, I want to fire that way. You know, like, this is the direction I want to fire in. So maybe you, like, internally in your head, you just sort of think about it differently. So if you're, like, to me, it working the other way is actually unintuitive. And I actually tried in D4, like, okay, if I, like, don't click on the monster, if I, like, am specifically trying to click on the ground to hit the monster, and I just play like that for a little while, like, what do I end up with? And I actually was missing all the time, because once again, it's not intuitive to me. But I'm like, okay, but if, like, one of the biggest other RPGs works this way, it does seem reasonable for us to have an option to change it to work that way. And so then I started looking into these other games, and
dude.
so like,
Don't do anything
like,
that
I checked Last
Diablo
Epoch.
does,
that
bro.
one
Come on.
Somewhat
You know this
inexplicably seems to look at your knee height, and I don't know why, rather than the chest height. It's kind of weird. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Pretty soon we're gonna have
called,
nightmare dungeons in PoE too.
Torchlight? Maybe?
Sorry, what was that? Sorry.
Torchlight Infinite? I don't know.
Torchlight Infinite.
No
That's
Rest for the
chest
Wicked?
height. No Rest for the Wicked. You know, I actually didn't check that one.
Okay.
But I checked. Oh God, what's it called? Whatever. There was another one I checked that was also feet. Like, it is a variety, right?
Okay.
The game. But okay. But it's like Diablo 4 is obviously like a game that tons of people played. You know, you got a lot of people coming from that to us. Like, this fundamental thing working differently is something that can matter. So basically, what I'm saying is we are actually looking into having an option for this. Whether or not it's the default or not is going to be an argument. You know, like that's a question. And I think that and the reason why I bring this up, right, when you just talk about the whole disabling the auto targeting thing, is because there's a very specific.
Turn your ideas into videos. Go to artlist.io and get everything you need.
That's like ad
all in
number
one place.
12.
Music, record.
And this might even be hard to explain without a picture, so I might have to hold this coffee cup up
Trying to
here.
collect
as
that
a
check.
visual aid here. So okay, we're getting right into it now. Basically, okay. So if you are targeting from your chest to chest, then basically when you move off,
Ambi's
like if this is the
busting out the
bounding box of the monster,
diagrams.
then as soon as you move the cursor off that, then the location on the ground that is nearest to that will be closer in terms of like the angle that your projectile would fire to the like location, like you move a small amount of distance of the mouse and you get a small amount of rotation of the of where you're gonna aim.
Right.
But using the system from your feet, it means that like when you move off a monster, that change in angle is quite a lot larger, because if you move off from here to here, it's like there's quite a big snap that happens. And so I think that when people are talking about wanting to disable this, it's because when they slightly click off the monster, it's resulting in an outsized amount of difference in angle of actual that you're attacking with. And so that sort of then means you're like, your instinct without sort of thinking about it too hard is going to be, oh, I just want to disable that, right? Rather than it just being that, like, if the 2 points were closer together, then that wouldn't be a concern that you would have. So as I said, I want to try just first, like, okay, let's just try with this thing to do that, and then we'll see how that goes. And then, like, there might be a world where I'd consider having it so that you can disable name locking as well. But I don't think that's going to be a complaint. Like, it never was in PoE 1. The moment that you don't have that problem. And I said, and I think in PoE 1, the reason why it was because people were so conditioned to how it worked from the way you're clicking to move. So I think it really is WASD that introduced us to that issue. But yeah, anyway, that's a long rant. It's like a whole thing that we're looking into at the moment. And that's what I have to say about that. But it took quite a lot of like thinking about it and working it out to see what the issue was there.
Okay. Well, thank you, Diablo 4. We'll look out for it. That's pretty cool. Okay. So on consoles, the Hideout music player doesn't work after being bought. Any idea if there's a fix? Like, people apparently
like, that was not on my radar.
Oh,
go like immediately and just ask someone to see why that is, because
we want to hear
there's almost
bangers.
Certainly going to be a bug in the issue tracker. There's almost certainly a bug in the issue tracker sitting there about that, and I just need to say that that's kind of unacceptable that doesn't work.
Awesome. And then one little quality of life feature before the silly question. Some people have difficulty reading text in chat in game. Is there an opportunity to perhaps add some options like an opacity slider on it instead of being all or nothing?
So we, for like a long time, have been wanting to do like a full chat revamp. And the problem then has been that because we've got that in the like what we want to do, it means that every time someone suggests like a little thing, they're like, oh, but we should just wait to do that for the whole huge chat revamp. And I just need to actually make sure the chat revamp happens, so that, because we want to add more options and things and like have a bunch more stuff going on with that. So basically before release, definitely we will have a chat revamp, and that'll like a lot of those kinds of problems we can just fix.
All right, awesome. One more Path of Exile related question, and one that is unrelated, unless maybe it inspires you. Anybody in the office playing Expedition 33? I have to ask. It's the only game that's taken me away from PoE 2, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, certainly. It's pretty popular. I played it. I kind of like... I fell off right after the end of Act 1. Really? Not to spoil anything, but there was something that happened there that kind of, for some reason, just kind of made me go, I don't know. Like, it just kind of... maybe a bit unhappy now. People tell me that I really should keep going because there's a lot more cool stuff, and so I hopefully I will get time to do that. But and then Doom came out, and and then there's that whole thing, and so I kind of got knocked off again. But there's lots of people around the office who are loving it. Cool.
All right, so I know why you fell off, and it tells me a lot about your personality, Jonathan. So everybody can no spoilers in the chat, guys. No spoilers. But okay, cool. All right. Last question before we send you off, man. Thank you for staying a few minutes over. Okay. Jonathan, I duped myself into thinking the druid was coming into Dawn of the Hunt. I was like completely blinders on. Everyone was like, you're wrong, you're wrong. No, the druid's coming, the huntress is coming. I know it was originally supposed to release with the huntress, and you don't need to get into timelines with the druid. I'm curious, can you reveal what kind of happened there? Was there like I heard something about animation snafus. Was it a balance concern? Like, what's happening?
It just wasn't ready. That's all I can say. It just wasn't ready? It just wasn't ready.
Okay.
So, I don't know what else to tell you.
Okay. Are Bear and Wolf forms still planned? Those two?
Well, you will have to find out when we announce everything.
Okay.
Nice try, dude.
I have a few more things, but I don't want to go over time, man. Thank you so much for giving me an hour and a half of your day. I know that you were booked literally the entire week except for this 90-minute window. So I really appreciate it. I do. So
no problem.
I wish you luck with the Path of Exile 1 League. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before?
Oh, not really. That's great. It's a great interview. Okay. So thanks very much.
All right.
I'll see you again next time.
It, guys.
All right. Definitely, Jonathan. Have a great one. Talk to you later.
You too.
That's the end of the interview. So yeah, dude, they're kind of that's a pretty good call, Clinton. I'm not gonna say, but it is what it is. That's all we got, man. They'll never give someone like me an opportunity to interview. Never. Even if I had I could have 500,000 subscribers, they still would not let me interview them, because I'd press up on them. I wouldn't let them get away with their circle talk. he said that attribute requirements weren't a thing in Path of Exile. That was some of the craziest shit I think I've ever heard. I don't know what game he's played, but it's definitely not this one. What'd you guys think of that, man? Like, it just sounds like a bunch of bullshit, huh? All of his answers. I do like how try reframe the question though, because I know that's what he was originally trying to ask. He did a pretty good job at that, but the rest of it was pretty, you know, whatever. Is what it is, you know. Yeah, it was more like a lot of it was like personal stuff, I think, and plus you got to remember too, his chat is like all people that are brand new to PoE, like all of them. I've been in his chat before, and it's all people that are just like, because he hyped up PoE 2 so much, so naturally his audience is going to be mainly people that are getting into PoE 2. Obviously he has some veterans in there, but it's mainly just people that yeah, dude, it just doesn't sound right. I don't know. Whoops, I spelled that wrong. Oh, I got the cross strafe one. Damn. Two perpendicular lines. Right? That's a good call, Clinton. I'm not gonna lie, dude. That's very, very perceptive. That's impressive. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a developer interview, you know, with Jonathan Rogers. You're just gonna sit there and be like, bup, 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 and then he's gonna say something that didn't even answer your question. That's just how he operates. Yeah, he's something else. Obviously, you know, he's gonna learn. I give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, maybe he'll pick up game development later on down the road. Once PoE 2's been out for like a couple of years, he gets a little bit of experience under his belt with how the community is gonna react. We'll see. Maybe it'll turn into a banger. It's just the thing about the movement speed and the campaign being too long, and him like I don't know why he can't just put 2 and 2 together. It just doesn't make much sense to me. I really want to see Jorgen, dude. He does he's been talking a lot about the vision on his, he's going to do like a podcast about it. I'm really interested to see about that. Jorgen said he'd sit down with me too and do I want to do a pod about build creation. So I'm hoping that happens soon. Just so you guys know, I'm gonna be Jorgen. He's like an Aussie creator, and he said he'd be good to sit down with me for like a little bit. Yeah. So we're probably gonna do I'm waiting for his response on Discord. I know he's been extremely busy with school and shit. It's gonna be about PoE, but he's a really good build creator, dude. And I've been messaging a lot of other creators to try to like do a collaboration. I want to ask them just from a new person's perspective, because I'm still relatively new, like sub 3,000 hours, you know. I want to ask him his philosophy on build making, like how he uses, like what he looks for first. Is it like item synergies, or does he look for like what he looks for on the tooltip of the gem and like all that stuff? No. I'm going to interview Jorgen, I think. He said he'd be good with it, but he's been busy. He hasn't responded yet. I'm waiting for his response right now. But I want to interview a lot of build creators for Path of Exile. I want to interview Connor Converse. He's on my list. I want to interview Captain Lance. Yeah, dude, I still feel like a noob, trust me. Like, especially when it comes to making my own build. That's why I want to get that podcast out there, because I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. I want to ask all the build creators, like the top build creators. Maybe, like, my ultimate goal is to get Ben. Jungrown? I think that's how you say that. Yeah, 100%, dude. We need a different ascendancy tool in PoE too. Needs to be something just like this, dude. Like, you can make it more challenging, but like doing the Sanctum thing was crazy to me. That was a fuck wild fucking design decision. I need to get the focus fire artillery ballista. I think that'll work out a lot better for the single target, because it actually will target the enemies. There it is. Alright, we're 32, dude. We can get the Iron Commander out now. We on, baby. Let's go. Wait a second. Oh, I probably had it in here. Here we go. Shrapnel Ballista has +1 to maximum number of summoned totems per 200 strength. Alright, well, we'll use Artillery Ballista for now, but I'm thinking that what does the other Iron Commander do? Is the other Iron Commander's, let's see. Is it still Siege Ballista? I can't remember. Oh, it is Siege Ballista. What the fuck? Oh, that one's Shrapnel, and this one is Siege. Okay. So I go deck stacking on this one. I think most people are using the replica one. Oh, this one does way more damage this way with the dexterity stacking. Deck stacking is probably a little bit more expensive, though, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, but you can get the Poised Prism, too. That works pretty well. Damn, it's a lot of DPS, too. It's just this one's not as tanky, obviously, because of the strength one. Let's see. Let's do Siege Ballista and just see what's up. I don't understand. Does Siege Ballista have a Transfigured gem? Oh, it does, of Splintering. Okay. This one's higher, too, of effective added damage. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do here. Huh. Let's see. I got a level 20 gem. Let's see. Let's see. What are we doing? We could do level. Oh, that didn't work. I don't know what the rejects is for it, but let's see. That's support. There we go. Let's see if we can get something good. I wanted to make an artillery ballista. I got dual strike, but level 19. That sucks. Could have maxed it. Seismic trap of swells. Throws a trap once trigger. Releases a number of waves. Each wave deals. Damn. Dude, there's some pretty cool fucking explosive concoction builds out there, like for a Scion. I've always wanted to check one out, but just never had the time to. Where I was like, oh, I don't really have a build that I want to make, but try it out. Let's put 6 links on this bad boy. Let's see if I have any more omens left. I don't. Let's see. Do I have a connection omen? No. All right, well, let's see. For SSF, it depends really on what you're trying to do, dude, to be honest with you. Like if you're trying to, because in SSF you have to run a bunch of different mechanics to put certain builds together. Like if you need awakened gems, you're gonna have to run the Maven. If you're trying to get like a simplex, you're gonna have to run heist. If you have to do a lot of fossil crafting, obviously you're gonna have to do delve. It's just like a bunch of different stuff. What build are you running? Maybe I can help narrow it down for you. Ground Slam Juggernaut. Okay. Are you following a POB? If you wouldn't mind, could you if you can link it for me in the chat? Maybe I could help you kind of narrow down what you should be running. Just like the ideal POB, whatever you're trying to follow. Or you know what? Better yet, what I can do is I can just look up on PoE Ninja. Kind of tell you from there. Damn, there's only a few people running this too. Okay, let's see. So nothing out of the ordinary for bases. Are you using the transfigured or regular? Just regular ground slam or ground slam of earth breaking? Damn, I did not mean to start that up right now, Jesus. Okay. Yeah, for earthquaking, let me double check for you real quick, dude. God damn, that took forever to load. Okay, for ground slam of earth breaking juggernaut. Or earth shaking, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're all juggernauts, okay. Okay, so you need your Defiance of Destiny, Echoes of Creation. Let's see. So for that Royal Plate, the one with explicit defense modifier magnitude, you're going to need to run Heist for that. For the Eventuality Rod, you're going to need Heist for that as well. Because that's going to give you +1 maximum endurance power charges and maximum endurance charges. That's the War Staff. You're going to need to run Heist. So definitely Heist, dude, for now. Because you can get all the other shit in Heist, too. And then you're going to need to run the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds, too, for those Forbidden Flesh and Flame. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do shrapnel. Why is that not coming up? What the fuck? Oh, that's why. Okay. I need a chronobise too. I bet I have one of those. Hell yeah. Alright guys, I am going to, I gotta get up in the morning and shit, so went a little bit longer tonight. I will be back on tomorrow, and yeah, thanks y'all for hanging out. I will be back on. See you guys. Good night.